there are moments when you have low motivation. There are points where you just feel like really ragged and tired. It's interesting, some of the things, the little hacks that you have to do to keep yourself motivated. And I think what you're doing with this podcast is great, where if folks who listen in and think about these things and hear other business people who are thinking about the same thing and listen to those little hacks, they could use those hacks and apply to their life or apply to their business and, put yourself in a higher percentage of being successful. So, this is awesome.
Mycore is on a mission to be the world's most people-centric company. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the core of people. I'm your host, Nathan Bourne, and I invite you to join me as we deep dive into the personal and professional lives of our guests. We're going to learn who they are, why they exist, and what they do. We're going to hear their stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In other words, we're going to talk to some really cool people. Welcome to the Mycore Podcast. Top of the morning to you. This is Nathan Bourne, your host, and I am here super pumped to bring to you conversation number 008 with my main man, Eun Cho. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Eun Cho. That's right.
I feel like I finally have it. We've known each other a couple years now, and I was like, I think I'm going to call you man and bro and what's up, friend. But now I'm confident in my my friend Eun here. You guys know I often am drinking coffee in these episodes, and I will give a shout out to Haymaker because I love their coffee. I drink it literally every day. I have my little K-cups here that I make in my Keurig over there in my little station. And this is Eun Cho, the founder, co-founder, and CEO. You and your wife founded the company.
It was my brother and my friend from middle school that we founded, and then she's the marketing and brand manager of the company.
So really, she's the boss.
She's the boss. She's the one that helps us brand this out there. So that's what's differentiating us out in the marketplace.
Awesome. So you're the chief executive officer, the CEO of the company, but you have two other co-founders.
That's correct.
Very cool. And when did the three of you found the company?
So the idea originated in 2020. This is a little more technical. We got our FEIN number in November of 2020, but we officially launched the coffee and the website in May of 2021.
Okay, cool. So that's like COVID.
Yep, during COVID.
Had to have informed it. Was it something that you were getting kind of creative with what to do?
It was interesting. We were during that time I was catching up some of the books I wanted to read, and there was this one book I was reading. It's called The Blue Ocean Strategy.
Oh, I love that book.
Chang Kim. And it was talking about companies in different marketplaces and how they're able to compete or make competition irrelevant. And we give credit to this company. We found this company called Black Rifle Coffee, and like, wow, they're able to compete and be in places that other folks are not in, and wanted to really understand how that happened. And when I looked at it, create a different matrix, just trying to do the analysis, and the matrix that worked and found the white space that where Black Rifle was competing was doing a matrix based on price, on the y-axis, and doing where a coffee company stand in terms of in their political space.
Right.
And what they did really well was that they succeeded. Again, their business model has changed a bit and their branding has changed, but they were really, really strong in the premium mass to the premium space in terms of price-wise, but they dominated in the conservative market. So it was like, wow. And then
it's very military. At any opportunity that I get to mention that I do CrossFit, I take that opportunity. So I'm going to do that right now. But it is big in the CrossFit world. I've been to competitions, I've competed and seen like Black Rifle booths and gear and merch. So kind of that like military, conservative, politically, like they found a niche and then elevated, and that kind of inspired you to play in that space. Not specifically those demographics.
Yeah, it inspired me to look at the coffee space differently. So then when we plotted the top 20 companies in that matrix, what we found at the time during COVID, majority of the top 20 companies were in the either socially centered or socially liberal. And then there were a few like Black Rifle, who was leading the category in the socially centered and socially right. There were some copycats there, but in the middle of the socially centered, there weren't many coffee brands out there. And so now, obviously, we love the veterans, we love the military, and so on. I'm actually a volunteer of Highway Heroes, but I know I'm not a veteran. So again,
you didn't want to be like stealing valor or trying to.
Yeah, so I'm not going to.
You want to be authentic.
I want to be authentic, so I'm not going to go into that space. Also, I'm not going to go into a space that.
You don't have blue hair, I think is what you're.
That's right. Yeah. So,
by the way, I want to give a little hook here for everyone that's just starting to listen to this episode, because I think you've got an awesome story, and we're going to get into it. Yeah. Fellow Ivy Leaguer, which I very much appreciate. You graduated from Columbia.
That's right.
I did not graduate, but went to Penn, Ivy League dropout, Ivy League graduate. And what I think is remarkable about your story, and we'll get more into it, and then back to what you're saying, is that Unhere graduated from Columbia, worked on Wall Street for how long?
Close to 15 years.
15 years, like crushing it, and then had almost like a soul search moment. You'll have to tell me about that. And I just think it's so cool that you're building a business from scratch, doing it in a way that is bold, like the flavor of this coffee. Because what a huge space. I mean, like you would just think, okay, coffee, dude, like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and Black Rifle, and the list goes on and on. Yeah. What are you thinking? There's no room in there. It's saturated. So I just wanted to commend you for that, because I think there's people that are listening. I know there's people that are listening. I know our listeners, and they may be in a similar situation where they've had an established career. They're doing well for themselves, and something isn't right, like mentally, emotionally. And for you to go for it and to take that risk and to build. And I know that you're still in the fight, like the Haymaker logo. I mean, you're still battling it out. That's right. Day in and day out as a true entrepreneur. So I think that'll probably be the main thing that we talk about here today. And I think that'll be insightful for people. But you were saying that 2020, help me understand this, because something I'm always curious about with entrepreneurs, having been one for all of my adult life practically, I always want to know like the relationship between what a company does and its founder. And ironically, I've often found that the most successful founders have this interesting relationship with what their company does. They care about it. They're proud of it. It matters to them, but there's something deeper that like underpins it. There's something that I think has to be in the core of it that actually drives the stamina required to keep going. So in other words, you may or may not love coffee. I know you drink coffee. I don't think you're like, oh, coffee. I wouldn't suggest starting a business something you hate. Yeah. But I think people feel like they have to have this, magnetic, deep passion for what their company does. Yeah. And you can fall in love with that later. I think there's something else that maybe is really the driver, whether that's I want freedom, I want to make my family proud, I want to, be my own, boss and write my own ship or whatever it may be. So I'm just kind of curious, like, do you love coffee or do you love business?
Wow, very good question. It's a combination of both. I love drinking coffee. When I was working in finance, probably when I was going on business trips, I probably drank 10 cups a day.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Because I was in different time zones.
You're in the grind.
I was in the grind, yeah. I drank a lot of coffee, but I didn't know the coffee business that well. But I have a love and appreciation for it. I've visited a lot of different places in the world where I tried the single origins and so on. But, getting back to I love the business aspect of it. Okay. And, when we looked at this space, I think at the time in the US, the coffee market was approximately $45 billion a year. I think now it's probably over $50 billion a year, and it's grown steadily. What's interesting about this is that, I'm learning every single day about the industry, about business, and about, who we are as a company and who the people are working. And I still haven't figured it out. But what's interesting about being in this business is that never been a CEO. I still don't think I'm a CEO. I'm still a business owner. But I'm able to use this platform to do things that were outside of the business world. What am I saying about that? Our company sponsored the Teacher of the Year award for Duval County Public Schools. When you hear us talk about what inspired us, there was a fourth grade teacher that inspired me, and also my younger brother. We coincidentally had the same fourth grade teacher who gave us positive energy, just positive motivation, and basically said to us, "Hey, you guys could be more than what you think you are going to be." And so there's a tie to the teachers, tie to education. And if I worked in finance, I don't think I would have had an opportunity to tell my story the way I'm telling it right now and have my company back it. So for the Teacher of the Year award, we gave away a year's worth of coffee to the winner of the Teacher of the Year. In addition, we know that it takes a village for someone to succeed. So we also gave the school a year's worth of coffee. And so what I like about being in this business owner is that, not that I'm a set my own schedule or be my own boss, is that there's an opportunity for us to use this platform of Haymaker as our company to do good in the community. So, obviously I want to build a badass business, but part of that is like, I want to also be a contributing member to the community and add value to the missions and things that are important to us.
Yeah, that's great, man. Where do you think that comes from? Like, how did that get instilled in you? I know it sounds nice. Like, I think everybody would immediately go, that sounds good and virtuous and altruistic. Like, did your parents teach you that? And here's another part of your story that I think is impressive. You moved here from South Korea.
Yeah.
That bug getting you. You can kill it.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I keep it pretty clean here.
Yeah.
You moved here at 8 years old?
Yeah, I think it was like 7 or 8.
7 or 8. Yeah. So as a young child, you've moved to the U.S. I'm assuming you didn't speak English at that point.
Nope.
So you're like thrown into a whole new culture. So that's a culture shock.
That's right.
Did your parents start working? Did they have family here? Like, tell me your story coming to America.
It was a challenging one. So basically, and you're going to hear this theme a lot with the coffee company, is that during the 80s, South Korea was not South Korea now. It was a challenging place to live, and my parents thought, in order for them to have a better life, in order for their kids to have a better life, we should go to the promised land, which was the U.S. And I still believe in that. Yeah. And so it was their American dream to sell everything that it had, which wasn't much, and then come to the U.S. to start a new life. And so that was the impetus for us to move here. But, with that, a lot of challenges came with it. My parents didn't speak the language. They didn't really have a professional career. And, we basically moved to a part of the U.S., Jacksonville, Florida, where, my uncle lived. So when we moved here, my dad worked at a gas station, pumping gas at my uncle's gas station. Wow. My mom took the bus from where we lived on the west side of town to downtown, approximately about an hour bus ride, to work at a restaurant. And so, my brother and I, again, didn't speak the language. I attended first grade. I got put in the back of the class because I couldn't communicate with the teacher. The teacher couldn't communicate with us. And there wasn't like a formal established like ESL program.
I was going to say, this was, because we're close in age, but you're a little bit older than me.
Yeah, right? in the 80s, sir. Yeah.
All right, so this is, dude, we got to kill that bug. Did you get it?
I'm not sure.
I think you got it. Yeah, good job. Yeah, this isn't now, right? So you're kind of just thrown in, and you're like,
that's right.
I have no idea what there's. I just think about, like, if I was 8 years old and I went, to Korea, you know, like I would be like,
yeah. It's
so
challenging.
you were fish out of water.
Fish out of water, couldn't speak the language. And, basically my parents couldn't speak English either. So we learned how to speak language by watching cartoons.
Really?
That's right. So that's why when people hear me talk, or my brother or my parents, we can't, we still don't speak like fluent English speakers because that wasn't our first language.
You're just imprinting wasn't English, so you've had to kind of rewire it.
Yeah, even sometimes I'm a lot older now, but even sometimes when I think in Korean or speak in Korean.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Think in Korean. I like.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so it was challenging growing up. But man, like what I do remember, my parents just working their asses off.
Right.
And the older we got, especially my brother and I, were like thinking about this, and we became so appreciative of how hard they worked just to give us an opportunity to go to school. I was the first one to go to college, and my brother went through a couple of really good schools. But it was because of what my parents did. How they instilled like really good values. It was the people that we met. Like again, mentioned the fourth grade teacher who had a tremendous impact on us, and we realized that where we are now in life was because all of these people had a positive impact on us.
Right.
And when we talk about giving back and when we talk about adding value to the community, it's as authentic as it gets. Sometimes my wife tells me like I'm stretching myself way too thin by being involved with this nonprofit and that being a mentor and so on. But it's because I really want to give back to the folks, paying it for all those folks that had a positive influence on us.
That's great, man. I can relate to that. My story is like the white American version of that. So I grew up very poor, huge family, fourth of 9 children. A lot of people that listen and are in my world kind of know my story, so I won't go into it too much. But I think just the like struggle and watching my parents, survive and provide the best they could was instilled. I mean, my parents just worked around the clock.
Yep.
And I think that people that maybe don't understand socioeconomics or being at the bottom of the rung think that people that are in poverty are lazy or something. And unfortunately, that's not. I mean, sometimes that's true, right? But a great deal of the time, that's not true. It's more of a set of thinking and opportunities and things that maybe were not there, or choices that they made that didn't connect to kind of have the footing and the foundation to build stability and wealth and financial strength. So I watched my parents work nonstop, but they never had any money to put together.
Well, they also had 9 kids.
And then that's a lot of, had the complexity of having 9 kids in the 21st century. Yeah. It's just, it's kind of unique. But so like working around the clock was normal to me. Like that's what what I saw. And it sounds like that work ethic probably rooted in some survival, and relative to what was going on in South Korea in the 80s, it was better, but it didn't change the reality of them having to grind.
Yeah.
So you and your brother had this attitude of gratitude that, look at this, we have an opportunity to leverage education, right? Because you guys leaned into, I think I just saw that your brother graduated. He got his MBA.
He got his MPA from Harvard. Yeah.
Loser.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Where did he do his undergrad?
He got his undergrad from University of Miami and then got his MBA from Kellogg. So I say he's the smarter of the 2 brothers.
And he's your older brother?
He's my younger brother.
Younger brother.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very good.
That's right.
So this is like an awful comparison, but I think it's just so top of mind for me. So I'm watching this show on Netflix. Have you seen the previews for this, the Menendez family?
No.
Oh, it's twisted and dark and it's very sad and sick. But what's interesting is that it's a mother and a father and 2 boys. Mm-hmm. If you know the story, the 2 children murdered their parents.
Wow.
Do you know anything about it? Because I didn't. Apparently it was like a thing, but I didn't, I didn't know it until Netflix made it a thing. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but I will just share this. There's some interesting details amongst the story. Granted, this is the Netflix version of the story. The brothers are still in prison after all these years. All kinds of abuse, generational abuse, very, very sad, very, very dark. But the father came to America. I can't remember where, somewhere in South America.
Yeah.
He had experienced a lot of abuse. But the American dream is sort of a common thread throughout the entire story, right? The entire Netflix series. And I know it has on your truck, where one of your trucks with the Haymaker wrap and branding, it says "Fueling the American Dream."
That's right.
And I want to talk to you about that because, I think that the American dream has become, well, one, it's waning, and we'll shy away from politics, but I think we can speak to the fact that I'll just speak for myself. If we don't protect the American dream, if we don't protect the American way, I think there's major ramification to that. I think there's consequences to that. And I love that you're kind of like teasing that out in your marketing and recognizing that, like, hey, life can be great, but it's also a fight, and yes, we're human, but we're also animals. And I love the branding that you guys use, because you have these really cool creatures, like bison, and
this is a tiger here,
and like you've got all these kind of different beasts, and they're fighting, like literally look like boxers. So talk to me a little bit about like that school of thought, because I think that's far more human than it is,
Yeah. So going back to that whole matrix idea. So, what we were looking at is when you look at coffee itself, it's a commodity business, right? People are asking about our beans, and we're very proud of what we have as a product. But the fact of the matter is, you can go anywhere and buy the same beans that we have, because you can go through a broker, you can go to the farms, and let's say this one specific farm in Guatemala has a certain climate and certain altitude and so on. You could basically go somewhere similar to get the similar beans. But I'm not a how would I say,
coffee connoisseur, right? I mean,
I don't go into that much detail, because in the sourcing step that we source from sustainable farms and so on through our partners. But the fact of the matter is, we think branding is really important here. And so we're like, how do we become authentic? Well, we got to ask ourselves, what do we stand for here as a company? And what we stand for is hard work, perseverance, grit, fighting for what you believe in. And we try to represent it with the way we talk about the coffee company, and also with the branding of it, right? So you alluded to the animals. So why did we pick these animals up? I mean, you've seen this logo a lot. So
every morning.
It's a boar with boxing gloves, and it says Haymaker Coffee. And so people asked about this, like, why did you pick a boar? We looked at the coffee space, and if you look at a lot of the packaging, it's a very pretty, aesthetically pleasing looking thing.
Right.
But to us, like, it's not about making a aesthetically appealing packaging. It's about who we stand for. Well, this bison shows a lot of like wrinkles, a lot of like
he's weatheredness,
like just hard times. Maybe is tired, and that represents all the people who fight for their dreams, right? Because sometimes you have to wake up really early, sleep late at nights, work on the weekends, not have vacations. And so that's what represents the brand. So why do we pick Haymaker as a name? Well, when we were going into the coffee space, we're the underdogs, right? The Starbucks, the Dunkin' Donuts, as you mentioned, are the big players. Well, I mean, how do you take out the champs? You got to throw some haymakers, right?
Right.
And so that's where it all came together with the haymaker, the boxing gloves, and the animals, and that's what it represents. And
I love it.
And so when we talk about this, it's like, considering our origins and considering the founders who are a part of the company, we're immigrants. We came here because we really believe in the American dream, and I still believe in it. Yeah. And I still try to tell this to my kids: like, if you work hard, again, it's not just working hard to keep yourself busy, but working hard, working smart, doing the right things, aligning yourself to things that you believe in. When you do those things well, stuff could happen. And, so that's kind of the messaging we go out with. And I think, initially, we kind of tweaked a little bit, but I think we're on the right track with this.
I love that. I want to keep talking about this. You're bringing a lot to mind as you share the ethos of the brand and of your culture, like company culture, but culture. So one area that I don't know, because I'm not well traveled and I'm not as cultured as I probably could be or should be.
Don't sell yourself short. You're very cultured.
Thanks, man. I at least know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So as you were sharing that, I had this imagery come to mind around like the soil. And, this is a physical product. This is something that was grown. It's comes from the earth. It was created. And the Bible talks about like planting seeds, those seeds being cultivated, and then there being a harvest. It's kind of one of the famous parables in the New Testament, whether you speak of it biblically or just basic cause and effect. Something that I've found is that people really underestimate the middle, the cultivation. You and I have talked about this before, right? That season where the rain and the clouds and the sun and the taking root occurs, because it's zero fun. Planting the seed is fun, right? You dig out a little soil, you plant the seed, you get excited. In other words, starting the company, having the light bulb moment, really being like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And of course, the harvest, I mean, that's super exciting, right? You get
Absolutely.
to bring it into the storehouse and have the big wins. But those parts are very little. One of the best examples, or very short compared to the laborious, mundane middle, the cultivation. One of the best examples I've heard of this is the Rocky movies, or specifically the original one, where the part where he trained and ran up the stairs and punched the pig and all that was like 2 minutes set to Eye of the Tiger, right? But that's the hardest, longest, most mundane, heavy laden part. But we don't want to sit there and watch it for hours, so we just give us 2 minutes to the Eye of the Tiger.
That's one of my favorite movies ever.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. I love that.
Yeah, he was my inspiration. Or that's the movie Sylvester Stallone. It's been my inspiration for a long time.
Oh, that's so fitting, with your branding.
Yeah.
I went to Penn in Philadelphia. Also, I like to look for opportunities to tell people that I went to Penn. So now I did CrossFit, Penn. So we would, and I wrestled there. So we would go and run those steps like all the time, man. I mean, like every Saturday morning we would have to go on a run. And so I've run the steps as an athlete, like he did many times there at the art museum. But anyway, I'm saying all this to say that you're in the middle right now, right? Like you're not sitting back at the harvest where you're like, just got written up on in Forbes, or just, bought another competitor. So talk to me about the middle, because what I'm gathering based on your parents moving here, based on you seeing their work ethic, and then having this like duty. I think this is something that is a secret weapon that so many Americans miss out on. And I feel almost blessed that I kind of grew up more like an immigrant, even though I was obviously American, born here, because I was just socioeconomically in that circle, and I wanted out. You know what I mean? Like I wanted out bad. Yeah. But I'm curious, in that middle, what keeps you going? Like what drives you? And then, mind you, I think the narrative, like the visual of somebody that comes from another country, is probably more like your parents' experience, where they had to work in a gas station and they had to, work in these jobs that aren't sexy. But you, just one generation removed, you transcended already through education. You went to an Ivy League school, you're on Wall Street, and you could have written that out, made way more money than the average person, had all the accolades that go with that, and you chose at some point to go back into the trenches, almost go back to your roots and rebuild something of your own. I got to know why you did that, because that's not normal, man.
Wow. So you actually described the journey that I'm on right now, and that is amazing. Look, man, there's a lot of things to talk about there, and it's going to sound a little bit unstructured here.
No, that's the point of this, man. Just to have a conversation.
I'm in the trenches back again, and my wife and I talk about this a lot. Is that we did have a pretty decent life when we were living in New York. This is my problem. This is not. I'm not asking for any pity or just. I'm just kind of give you the mindset that people need to go through when they become an entrepreneur. Is that when we were living in New York City, we would go out to eat. I didn't really care what we were ordering. I could order a nice bottle of wine, and it would be okay. Now being an entrepreneur, where you're putting money into the company, you got to really tone down your lifestyle to make this thing work. And again, I'm in the trenches right now. I'm not in the harvest part of my company. We cook lunch every day. We make dinner every day for our kids. We don't go out to eat much. Actually, maybe one time every 2 weeks. We went to the Cheesecake Factory yesterday because the kids were home. I mean, it's
and
tough.
That was a treat, and you had to think about it, and it was like, why do we even do that? You dropped $100 or $150, whatever.
That's right.
I had 5 kids, dude. I can't. We went to Top Golf the other night, $200.
Yeah.
And it was like their Tuesday half price. I was like, this is half price. A good thing we ain't here on a Wednesday.
So you know the journey, man.
Oh, dude.
So I think people who are entrepreneurs right now totally understand the journey that we're in right now, and it's tough. Okay, I did think about it. There was I love cheesecake, and I wanted to order a cheesecake, and I'm like, damn, this is $13. Like, I don't want to spend $13 for cheesecake when I could go to Publix and buy one for like $3. Yeah. So these are tough decisions that one should consider before becoming an entrepreneur. And man, there's people ask, man, it must be really exciting to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, it is. It definitely is. But you got to understand,
it's a thrill. It's just how thrilling do you want it to be?
Yeah,
it's up and down.
So again, I'm sure people have seen these things where being an entrepreneur is not like smooth startup. It's literally peaks and valleys like crazy, going backwards, forwards, and so on. Man, the grind is real. I wake up 5 a.m. sometimes. That's when I try to go to the gym. Obviously, I don't go to the gym that much, but I do wake up 5 a.m. And there are times I just sit there in bed and just thinking about the business the whole time.
What am I doing? Yeah.
What am I doing? At nights, I think about that. On the weekends, I'm working, and I have 2 little kids. Right. It's a sacrifice. It's that grind of where we are in the stage of the company. I'm not sure when we get out of it. But we're growing, but it's going to take probably another 2 years for us to get to a point where we could thrive. So
isn't it interesting on that we've turned a corner ourselves in the past year. So I have a little more solace just knowing that we're profitable, that my executive team is so strong. So there's I never say never, but I feel like I'm just speaking for my core, that we're past the point of no return. Look, Ma, I made it, we kind of broke through. And I think about it, it's funny. It's like PTSD or something. I will have entire schools of thought trying to think of threats or blind spots. And I'm just like, what am I missing? There's gotta be something that's just going to rear its head. And then I'm like, chill, man. You slayed that dragon. That's buttoned up. You took care of that, so even after you make it, dude, that feeling doesn't go away because you're going I have to sustain this now. I have to grow it. But then the part that's really interesting, and you spoke to it, I want to hear your opinion on this, because it's such a brutal process, psychologically. you'll keep progressing. Like there's almost this inner dialogue. It's taken me back like a couple years ago, or really just last year, not even a couple years ago, just last year, where I would have these conversations with God, with myself, where I'm like, why does this thing keep growing? Why does it keep working? Why do we keep going? Why don't you just give me like a headshot? Like it would be easier if just something colossally failed.
Wow.
But the problem is you measure what matters and you go, well, guys, we've grown.
Yeah.
And look, we just got into Jacksonville University, and look, we just landed this. So it's this really bizarre thing, because I think the hardest part of business is not failure. It's success. It's the progression and the progressive success, because it's all little things, little wins. But if you can have enough perspective to connect them and then go, well, what if we did that for another year and then another year? Oh my, where could we be? Even just at this exact rate.
Yeah.
Like we're going to grow by 50% this year. I hoped to double. Like I really thought we would double our revenue.
Yeah.
And then I worked with a mentor, and he's like, well, you didn't really focus on revenue generation. You like restructured the whole company. And I was like, oh, damn, you're right. So I think we think that we're always trying to generate more revenue. Like that's always happening. Yeah. And the truth is, if you're an NFL team or an NBA team, you're not winning the Super Bowl. You're not winning the NBA finals this year. You're going to build for 3 or 4 years, recruit well, try to keep the team healthy, get the leadership right. So I think we have to give ourselves a little bit more grace and recognize that like you're not always going to be winning, but you will always be building.
Yeah.
So I just was curious if you could relate to that, because it's like, wouldn't it be easier if just something major happened that shut it down? Because then you'd be like, oh, well, can't do it. I guess I got to go back to, but it doesn't work that way. It's like these little wins that you keep getting, and you keep getting the next few feet and the next little win and the next little bit of light. And that's the hardest part, is winning.
Yeah.
Am I making sense? It's kind of hard to articulate.
No, it makes a lot of sense to me. Man, there are some times it was challenging where I like, maybe we need to throw the towel in. Maybe I need to go back to my old CEO.
Or reality. Like you start to even question if you're delusional. You're like, I lost my damn mind. There
were moments I thought about asking my old boss for my job back. And, I'll tell you, there was a turning moment last year that was really like impactful. Was, we're trying to build on this college success that we have. We're in Jacksonville University, the dining hall. We have a branded Haymaker Coffee there. We're at UNF. I think the big turning point happened on our college business was when Clemson called us. So Clemson University is one of our clients, and they've been just amazing folks to work with. We love it there, and but that also gives us like an opportunity to talk to other big universities, because it's like, hey, there's some validation that you can do this, right? Prior to that, I was like, man, we're trying different things to make the company grow and make it work, but that was one thing where like when we felt like maybe we couldn't grow. Clemson came in, big help, big lift. And now we're like, okay, now we're growing, we're investing, not got to deal with this cash flow problem. I'm in the process of talking with banks to get some loans, but it's every day. It's every day you get this high of something new that's happening or a new prospect. We're going to go meet in South Carolina. And then maybe something happened, the hurricane comes and then your trucks are out of operation. You lost 2 days of cash flow. Right. How do you manage that? It's always like that. But I have to say, like, there have been moments where I just feel like, I don't know if you can go on, but we find a way to do it.
Yeah, you find the perseverance, you dig in, and it's kind of in the same vein. Like, I have always envied people that can think small. like I'm almost like, how do you do that? Because I'm not wired that way. And I bet you there's times where you think, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but where like, let's say this was something that was strictly on the side and it was limited to farmers markets. And like you and your wife and kids, every Saturday went to a regional farmers market and you set up your cool booth and you served your coffee and you made $1,000 and you thought, oh, well, look, we paid for Cheesecake Factory and then some this week. But you can't get yourself to stop there, right? Because that would be cool. And there are people that are kind of artisans, and especially at like a farmer's market, they might make their soaps, and that's just kind of the end of the story. They have their pastries, or they have their knitted hats, and you're kind of just like. But I would imagine, having come from where you've come from, worked as hard as you've worked, gone to the school that you've gone to, worked on Wall Street, you're sitting there amongst these people and thinking, I'm not going to stop here. Like, I'm building a brand. I'm going to be the next Black Rifle. I'm going to be something that, so then you have to be like humble and like present and be like, oh, thank you so much. And like genuinely thank that person for coughing out $5 or $6 for a cup. But the whole time you're going, Clemson, if we land Clemson, what if we got into the entire ACC? You're like, your mind's racing. Can you relate to what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like wrestling with like the potential all the time is a big struggle mentally.
So when we started the business, we knew there was potential. Again, there's been a lot of inspirations. I mentioned Black Rifle as an inspiration, but there are also other coffee companies that were in that give us inspiration. We know we're onto something big because this company that we're building, it actually means something. We're giving back to the community. People are resonating with the brand. The students at these campuses that we're on, they like the brand. It's like finding the how would I say, like picking out the best things that each company does really well. Like, I look at Dutch Brothers too. I look at La Colombe Coffee, what they did and in the space. I look at what Starbucks did really well, and so on. And you could pick some of the best things and apply it to your company and say, okay, would this work in our space? Would it not work? Do we have the capability to do it, or do we not have the capability? So we knew there's potential here. Now, going back to the farmers market, I look at our peers there and our friends there. Couple things go through my head. I've been blessed to be in a situation where I've seen business models and spoke with people and have a network of folks I could tap in for advice or, potential investor or things. I think everyone has a potential, but what the difference, I think what we do and some of the other guys is that, I'm aware what these potentials are. I've seen it. And I think
and you've been on the finance side of it.
Yeah. And if I were to able to share some of my thoughts and network with some of the folks that are in my arts market, maybe they have those ambitions too. Right. And so, what I do, Riverside Arts Market is one of the biggest markets in Jacksonville. I actually walk around the different booths. I talk to folks and it's like, hey, is there a way we can partner, work with each other, and try to give them the picture of what's possible out there. Again, there's some folks who are like, I don't want to be that big. I don't want to go there, which is perfectly fine. And there's some people like, wow, that's actually really interesting. You brought that up. I've been considering, but I don't have any ways to do it. So that is where I think our company could stand to differentiate. It's like, everyone's like scrambling to be the best coffee company. Like, I want to be the best coffee company too, but I want to build a coalition of folks who want to really work hard and build a great business. One of the reasons why we moved away from a big payment processing vendor to work with you. We want to work with you because you're good people. You have a great company, and working with small businesses matters more than working with a big business, right? So that is what I want to do with this business and our partners. So yeah, it's okay for people that have different ambitions and different goals. I think for us, I look, in the whole F&B space, I look at someone like Liquid Death and like, man, they nailed it. Right. Absolutely. They're, it's literally water in a can. It's water in a can, but you know what they did?
I've never even tasted it, but I just like,
it tastes like water in a can.
It tastes like water in a can. Yeah.
But and they weren't the first one to do it. Yeah. In the vending machine we have here, they have water in a can. Yeah. But man, they crushed it in the branding, and they're very authentic about the way they go about it. Mm-hmm. And I think there's an opportunity for us to do the same thing in the coffee space. Be authentic of who we are as a company and the people who we build it with, and then try to build that coalition with fun people, people who are ambitious, who want to grow their business, and build that and just go after it.
It's good, man. It's good stuff. As you were kind of holding the those are those ground? I don't know. I do the K cups.
This is the whole bean.
Okay, whole beans. As you were holding the packaging there, and you were describing the bore, for a moment I thought it sounds almost like the targeting, and if you don't know the kind of your backstory, you might think that this is targeted to or positioned for like the trades, people that work with their hands and people that, are out in the elements and getting weathered. Like I can identify with that because that's what my family, my dad, my brothers, they work in painting and on the water, and they're like out there in the world physically. But you're not a blue collar guy. So I think it's interesting that, and this is a premium.
We were blue. Well, my parents
were, right? Yeah. So you're like, I think you're probably like me in this way, right? Yeah. Where you have the grit and you have the roots to roll up your sleeves and work like somebody that digs ditches all day, or works in a restaurant. But you found a way intellectually to operate. So I think that's the like winning combination, right? Because we went to school with people that can think and speak and write, and they're candy asses. They're just soft. And then you meet people like you and myself that you're like, wow, you have a lot of mental capacity, but you work like you are, a lineman, or you're working on a scaffolding or something. Yeah. So it's like if you can combine the grit of the trades, but I think of it this way: there's really two types of people in the world. There's thinkers and there's doers. Yeah. But what often happens, and I say this at the risk of sounding like a jerk, a lot of the doers aren't doing enough thinking. Yeah. So they're just doing, right? Yeah. They're doing the job, they're doing the thing, and they're not really thinking about how they could have leverage or how they could hire or how they could expand. And then you have thinkers, but they're not doers. Yeah. They don't work hard enough in the unsexy stuff. Yeah. So anyway, I'm saying that to say that I love that the brand and the mindset can capture both of those audiences. It's not just like the guy that's working in construction that stops at Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. It's the guy like me that has this little bougie office that I drink it every morning.
I had a really interesting conversation with my friend about this. So we were blue collar family, and I worked in a white collar job. And my mindset has become blue collar again. And I'll tell you the reason why. I'm not wearing suits anymore. I'm not wearing my ties anymore. I'm wearing t-shirt, shorts, sneakers that gets dirty from coffee. I'm working the trucks on the weekends. Being a barista,
it's tangible.
Being a barista, I'm in our office this morning, packaging our coffee to be sent out. This was a big challenge, and I'll get to where you're going with this. Is that for the longest time, I still thought of myself as a guy who worked in finance, who worked in Wall Street, and I'm getting into the coffee space. But actually, that whole finance thing, the Wall Street thing, that all of the things that come with it,
trappings
I have to get away from that mindset. What I am right now is someone who had experience working in finance, but I'm working in a totally different industry where I am feeling the blue collar people. I'm also feeling the white collar people. And for me to really understand who my customer base is that I need to just be more open minded and approach it differently. And so, I do work in a white collar industry, but now I'm a blue collar as a person.
Right. At your roots, and I think so it's funny you said, because that was my story, man. I was wearing suits. My first 9 years of professional career was suits every day, ties. It wasn't as established as like Wall Street, but I was in the market. I was, face to face. I was in offices, and I thought I was fine. Like I didn't think I hated it, but then later I found, dude, I want to dress like this. You know what I mean? Like I want to wear what I want to wear because I want to wear it, and it's more of authentically who I am. And then I just refused to entirely drop one skill set that right? So the acumen that you have and the perspective that you have, it stays with you, right? Because now and I want to pay you a compliment here, because this morning I went to the chiropractor, because I go to 100% chiropractic with Dr. Greg and Dr. Jazz.
Yeah.
And they're a client of yours. And
great folks.
Great. They're awesome. Yeah. They're so great. And when they do their like client appreciation, they've had the truck there a few times. And I remember I was shocked to see it. I was like, hey, how did you guys meet each other? And I was like, they're friends and client. Anyway, this morning I told them that I was, having you on the podcast, and she was like, oh, I love them. They're so professional. She was like, I've never worked with a vendor that was so buttoned up before. And I know your backstory, and I thought, that's really cool, because I bet that there's an acumen that you're bringing to this space that typically the coffee connoisseurs that are truly like in the beans and here cracking and smell it don't have, right? Mm. So it's the trade-off there is like, maybe they know everything about Colombian beans, but they can't run a damn business.
Yeah.
And you might not know everything about Colombian beans, but you know enough to know that this is quality. It's of premium value, and you're running a good business. And just real time this morning, they endorsed you.
Actually, I'd love to talk about that part. So, couple things. Oh, sorry.
No.
Couple things I tell my.
My back hurts. I'm stretching.
Oh no. Same thing. I'm doing the same. Couple things I tell my our team is this. Our trucks, they're brand new. There's some definitely pluses and some negatives about having a brand new truck.
Right.
But what we do on our trucks, like, I don't know if you've ever been to a couple of food trucks where you see the inside, and you're like, oh man, that's disgusting.
That's gross. Yeah.
I don't want to be in there.
Rust and
I went inside of my food truck coffee truck to bring my Cobra out. The owners and the partners and people who are affiliated with the business, we eat and drink out of the trucks too. Yeah. And so our thing is like, hey, we need to keep this truck as clean as possible. If our clients were to come in and look at it, they're like, well, I could eat and drink out of there. So that was the number one thing. But the number two thing, and which is probably
cleanliness is close to godliness, or whatever, right? That hygiene.
The thing is that we wanted to bring professionalism into the coffee truck business. What does it mean? Like, here's some things. And I know my fellow truck owners are going to do the same thing. It's like, hey, whenever you tell someone that you're going to be there at least 30 minutes early. Be prepped. Be on top of things, ask questions, be as professional as possible. And these are some of the things I prepared when we went to client trips to pitch our mutual funds to get clients on. So I brought that on there with trucks. And what we also do is, like, hey, after each of these events that we do, private events, we give them a gift box of Haymaker Coffee, like some merch and so on, to make them feel like, hey, we appreciate the business. We approach the coffee business differently, and that we want you to feel like you're working with professional people. And so when I hear things that you're saying like that, it makes me feel proud that our guys are doing the right things.
That should encourage you, man, because it was unsolicited and it was organic and natural. And I just sort of stated it because I plan on having them on the podcast.
Oh, great!
They are new in their business. And I think it would be awesome to interview them. I hope to do another episode with you with Claudia. Yeah. Because I want to talk about marriage and business and family and the combination thereof. And we can talk a little bit about that today, but be better with Claudia here, because that's a serious balancing act.
Yeah.
And my wife, she holds it down. I mean, heck, yesterday with the schools and today with the schools being shut down because of the hurricane, I didn't stay home. I came in here and worked, and I'm here right now. And it's like, I don't love that I'm leaving my wife with a house full of kids and the potential for the power to go out. But we have to make sure that the lights stay on outside of the storm, so it's a sacrifice to be an entrepreneur. It's not for the faint of heart.
That was exactly what happened yesterday. So I was working here,
I saw you here.
In the morning. And then I called my wife, and I could just hear in her voice. She's like, man, two boys running around 6 and 3. Yeah. It was rough. So, it's like, okay, Claudia, I'm leaving. I'm going to come and we'll go out to eat. Like, no. Let's go. Like, I know it's tough. We got to get the kids out of the house, and we need to like tag team here. So that's what we had to do. But you and I are trying to manage that, not just trying to grow a business, but also trying to manage a family life too. What's interesting about what you said previously about the doers and the thinkers. So I thought about that. It was when we first came in. I thought what our competitive advantage what's going to be is that we have some thinking ability or
smart people. Yeah.
Again, I feel like I got lucky. I've been able to do things to put myself in places, but I have access to like reading K1s. I have access to reading like IPO documents. So I've been able to get access to things that maybe people are not even aware of. They can go look at things, right? So I thought that was our competitive advantage when we're getting into the space. Is that, hey, again, I look at my parents, smart folks, work their asses off, but my parents didn't go to college, so there's no way for them to have or be aware there is information out there. And so having that information, we felt was an advantage. And what ends up happening now, there's a certain level of intelligence or a certain level of capacity you need to operate a business well above the average. But then, like you said, it's like, but then you have to do the things and execute too, right? If you don't execute on the business model itself, it's not going to work. And I don't know how many entrepreneurs I've been listening to lately. The ideas itself, it's not novel. It's the actual execution and managing a team that is where it needs to happen, right? I'm in the midst of fundraising and speaking with banks. So I have my investor decks going on right now. And initially I was nervous about it, but I'm like, you know what, here's my playbook. I mean, go try it. See if you guys could do it. Because I know as a person who has pretty good awareness, I think I have pretty good EQ, some relative IQ, but more EQ. Building these relationships were really, really hard. And I'm thinking like, if you really think about this, there smart people will get access to my deck at some point. I'm like, all right, dude, try to replicate what I'm doing. It's not going to be that easy because I don't think they're willing to sacrifice what they have to do to be at the level that I am right now, where I'm just fighting every day and be hungry as I am. Okay, now you have the people who are the doers, as you were talking about. I think some of them will have the inability to have access to the information I have and the network. So, that's where I feel a little more comfort level that, hey, like you said, I'm here in terms of intelligence level, but right now I've just been like moving up in terms of my doing and capability and execution with our team. And, our partners and our team are going out there executing. And, we don't have a huge staff. We have 11 people involved with the team. Just even 11 people, it's not easy to manage, but, we're finding ways to keep that together. So I thought that was a really interesting point you brought up there.
I like how you unpack that, like specific to your experience and journey. I just did an episode with Arminius, who the
best dressed guy here.
Dude, best dressed guy ever. Here on planet Earth.
I was looking at his green suit today. Like if he sat in your chair, like you can't see him.
I know. He's got like this, and it was funny because in the episode we talked about that specific suit that he's wearing today.
Oh yeah,
and how that's like his main, because he said he's got about 30 like custom suits for himself. Because I was like, I don't really ever feel like he wears the same thing twice. I'm like, how many suits do you have, dude? And he said that his double-breasted green suit, the exact color of this chair and wall, is like his go-to when he has like a big opportunity.
Nice.
So he's wearing it today.
Yeah.
So when I went and got cream for my coffee right before we started the episode, I was like, hey man, I said, what do you got going on today? I said, I know you only wear that suit.
Yeah.
So I love how the podcast is also becoming an opportunity to deepen relationships as well, because, we are on the grind. When else would we sit down, have coffee, and talk for an hour or so?
Yeah.
Same with Arminius. But what we did, I want to show it to you, is what you were just talking about, because I dress differently than usual. I wore one of his custom suits. And then I worked with Kenya and had this little idea like, hey, why don't we put a post out with just some like some tips and some advice for growing and scaling a business, but we'll use wordplay because throughout the episode we kept kind of using wordplay around buttoning it up and these things. But you just touched on something. So it says, want to tailor your business for scale, do these 4 things, right? And it was button up your values and mission, stitch together your processes and systems, grab a mentor by the coattails. But then this 4th one you just spoke to, it says, stop keeping everything so close to the vest. Don't keep your ideas too close to the vest. Share them. The journey from a light bulb moment to a thriving enterprise requires collaboration. Sharing openly creates an abundant mindset and unlocks new opportunities for growth. So I think you'd agree with that, where it's this weird process that you go through where you have to have an idea and you have to believe that it's special and unique and maybe even like, Nathan, this is God speaking, like it's divine, this divine download, this insight, this kind of like gut punch. And then at some point you go through this process where you're kind of like, wait, I bet 1 million other people have this same idea at the same time, but now I'm in execution phase. Now I'm in the grind. Now I'm in the middle. Now I'm in cultivation.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think is really important is that throughout that process, if you let it lose its luster to where it's not special and it's not uniquely yours and you're not like handpicked for it, you'll just get lost in the sauce of the mundane and you'll lose the magic for it. So it's this interesting contrast and collision of like 2 opposing thoughts, which is one is like, I am uniquely created for this. I'm the only guy that can pull this off. I'm the person. And who gives a whoop? You know what I mean? Like it's all good. Just do the work, grind it out. So I think that sharing it, whether it's the deck or the idea or the suppliers or, the like little secret sauces, the thing that keeps me sharing abundantly and openly is that I know they won't do the shit that I did to create it and that I continue to do. It's too much work. Like very few people will do it. And if they are that type of person, what are the odds of them being in my space? And if they are in my space, there's still enough to go around, plenty to go around. So I feel like you were kind of speaking to that a little bit when you were like, I've got this deck. And then I almost like watched you real time go like, but they're not me. You know what I mean? Like they weren't on Wall Street for 15 years and see this whole other perspective. So I just was curious your thoughts on that. Like, it sounds like you are really kind of open panel and open source in the way that you share these things. Is it because you feel you're kind of uniquely created for it?
Good question. I didn't think of it that way, but the way that we've been approaching this, and it's not just me, it's just the partners and everyone who's working in the company, is that we just got to get shit done. And sacrifices have to be made and so on. And, it's interesting when you talk about this journey that we're on, and I private conversation or public conversation with other folks who's kind of in my stage right now, like in their life, like 2 kids, wife, in their early to mid 40s, who's willing to make that sacrifice? I will tell you that not many people are willing to do it. And, and then we're like, who's your inspiration? Well, the people who believed in us, friends and family who invested with us, and also my kids who are like talking about Haymaker. I'm like, man, I can't let this thing fail because my kids are going to be asking questions.
That's really good, man. As you were sharing that, I just thought about this. Like, imagine you go out 10 years from now, because your boys are young.
Yeah, they're young.
So imagine 10 years from now, they're teenagers and you've let it fail. And I say that very directly because it didn't fail. People do. I'm always fascinated by people. People confuse change with failure. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they failed because they chose to fail, either by not sticking to it, or by making the poor decisions or whatever, And look, I'm not saying I'm immune to this, right? And I walk around every day thinking, something could go wrong. I'm not like, not possible. I'm not like it's impossible to fail or something, but especially LinkedIn. Like if you think about LinkedIn, think about your network on LinkedIn. And this is not going to be a super popular statement, but I'm amazed by how many people change, particularly millennials and now Gen Z. I mean, they'll have like 7 jobs before they're 27. And I'm thinking like, what a weird game they're playing where they kind of, stair step through these careers and they take another deal. And you can play that game. You can go to this tech company and get this deal and then go to the next one. And I'm not knocking it, whatever, to each their own. But what I think happens is that people will change their story and they'll call it change when it's really failure. It's really quitting. Yeah. It's really giving up. It's really giving in. And it's like, no, you didn't pivot. You stopped, and then you created a whole nother set of rules. So I guess what I'm saying in that is the idea of your sons finding like a Haymaker shirt in the closet or, an old cup or just, something that like was like, oh, that was then. And then they're kind of like, why didn't you guys keep going with this? Yeah. That's got to just to you. That's got to be like, because I've watched my kids, like they know what my core is. Like they know, and they make jokes about it, and will say, I want to work at my core, or I don't want to work at my core. And I'm like, I'm not going to let this be something that was like a season or a phase. I'm going to see this thing out, even if you sell it off, and that's the big win or something. But I'm curious if that resonates with you, like the idea of your children watching you persevere. That's got to be just as important as IPOing or something.
Yeah. So I bring my kids on the truck on Sundays now too, so they could be exposed to it. I'm bringing my 3-year-old, and he has amazing awareness too. He's picking up on these things. And look, when I think about failures, I identify failure as not reaching our goal with the company, and I think the reason why we made it so far is that the 3 of us who are involved in business, we're not going to let it happen.
Yeah.
And
not on my watch.
Not on our watch. And we're not going to let it happen. And we're going to do whatever needs to happen to make this thing work. And I think that's the reason why we made it so far. But, it's kind of weird. I do this to myself is, I get my kids involved because with that additional motivation I get from like not wanting to disappoint my kids of that daddy didn't make this work or that is uncle didn't make it work or Uncle Simon didn't make it work. That just puts a lot more pressure on me. So what does that do? I'm reaching out to my friends in Silicon Valley at 11 p.m. at night to be, hey, can you make some intros for me again, that's what drives me at 11 p.m. at night to send text messages to see what we can do there. And I think that's the kind of perseverance and grit you need to have. And if you feel like just failure to yourself, it's not enough, well, then get other people involved. And it's like, hey, I don't want to disappoint my wife. I don't want to disappoint my kids. I don't want to disappoint my parents, or I don't want to disappoint my friends. Well, whatever motivation you need to make sure that this doesn't fail, like use it. And I think that's what we've been doing lately. That's great. But we, when we bought our first truck, I could have easily came here to Expansive and worked on it with my business partners to get it up to speed. I'm like, no, I brought my kid. My kid was sitting in the truck at 4.5 years old. He's sitting on the steering wheel while we were trying to fix the truck. So he's going to remember this. And again, there are some points in the company where we feel like, oh shit, this is going to be bad, right? Right. If it goes that direction, which we're not going to let it go, but if it did, at least my kids will remember one day, like, hey, daddy and mommy worked their asses off for this. And, if that's what's left over a Haymaker at some point, which we're not going to let it happen. Right. I think I'm going to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's good. And I think the continuity in that, the constant in that equation is you and Claudia and your family and the unit, the core, your brother. And it's like, that's never going anywhere, right? Because that's whether it's Haymaker or Schmaymaker, or the next thing or whatever it is it's like, if people can approach their ventures and approach their dreams like any equation or just basic algebra and recognize what are the variables and what are the constants, and put some constants in, put some mechanisms, put some levers, put some boundaries, and even some safeguards. I think of like bowling when, you know, you're a kid and they put the guards down and just kind of rattles off and you at least get a few pins, right?
Yeah.
Well, you have to do this and put yourself in these positions where you have to do it. You have to succeed. You have to persevere. You have to make the call. And that can be like macro, like, you know, we have to triumph, or it can be micro, like, oh, I know that if I fold my clothing for working out and have it laid out the night before, it will greatly increase my chances of going the next morning.
Yeah.
So I have all these little hacks, all these little things that I do. I call it being hung by the tongue, which is when I will say things that do not exist yet, that are not real. I'm not delusional. I'm not a crazy person. I give an asterisk on it and I let people know that, like, I know this doesn't exist yet. But unless I state it 100 times publicly, I won't do it. So right now, like, I'm in the process of launching the My Core Academy.
Yeah.
And it's based on this formula, speak equation. It's mindset plus skill set plus tool set equals asset. And I've lived by that because I think everybody wants to build an asset and everybody wants to be an asset. Well, how do you break that down? Well, it's definitely your thinking. It's definitely your skills, your abilities. And it's definitely like, you got to have the right tools. You know, you can't have a crappy truck that's dirty. You know, like you got to have the right software. You got to have the right providers, all the things. So anyway, I've been building this academy and I've been talking about it. This podcast I talked about for a year. I would talk to you about it before I did it.
That's right.
I wasn't bullshitting. I just knew that if I don't keep saying it, I will let it fade into the distance. So I think what you're doing there by bringing your children like in the core of the work is you're making yourself accountable to your legacy. You know what I mean? To your wife, to your kids, and being like, well, I've made this too much a part of their life. I have to see this through. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, it's a fair assessment. And it's actually interesting you mentioned this. So this year, I got into Leadership Jacksonville, which is an amazing honor. The high school that my brother and I and my business partner attended, there are rumors that it may close down.
Closed down the high school.
Yeah, because Duval County is having some funding issues. Public schools having funding issues, and I said to myself, not on my watch, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's great.
So what we end up doing, we partner up with some of the alumni to try to formulate a plan with the school to make sure it doesn't happen. And one of the things we came up with was to do a documentary about why the school is great, what are some of the things that are in consideration for it to be shut down, highlight some of the programs. And so what ended up happening, it just happened the filmmaker is also on Leadership Jack this year with me. And we were at the Leadership Jack's retreat, and we made an announcement that this is that he and I are working on this along with the school and my brother, that we're going to do this. And we said it out loud to make sure that now everyone's going to hold us accountable because like, if you guys don't do it, you guys didn't keep your word. Right. So it's interesting you say that. And there's other things I say to myself out loud. You know, we have this college business. It's absolutely amazing. We have 6 schools signed up. We have Clemson, Coastal Carolina, USC, Aiken, Jacksonville University, UNF, and FSCJ. And we really want to build this out. It's one of these things where I talk about it a lot with our business partners. I talk about it with our friends and family. I talk about it with anybody who is willing to listen. And I talk because if I don't talk about it, I'm not going to hold myself accountable. Because if I'm the only one, or if our business partners are the only one that talks about it and we don't kind of talk about it out loud, who's going to hold us accountable, right? Because, you know, as a business owner would know this, there are moments when you have low motivation. There are points where you just feel like really ragged and tired. And sometimes you need that external motivation to push you forward. And so, you know, like maybe tomorrow I'll feel a little bit low about the business and I'll go out, meet someone, and someone will be like, hey, how's that college business going for you? And I'm like, oh, shit. Like they remember, right? Yep. So it's interesting. Some of the things, the little hacks that you have to do to keep yourself motivated. And I think what you're doing with this podcast is great, where if folks who listen in and think about these things and hear other business people who are thinking about the same thing and listen to those little hacks, they could use those hacks and apply to their life or apply to their business and, put yourself in a higher percentage of being successful. So, this is awesome, man.
Thank you, man. That's really encouraging. And I think it's important for people to know that like you don't win every day. I have kind of a hack, and I shared it. It's kind of a cool story. I shared it with a guy years ago. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of, I call it world according to Nathan. Just little things that are whatever my things, and some of them I feel like are semi-original, where I'm like, oh, I've never heard that anywhere, and others I've full on robbed and duplicated. But this one I had never quite heard, and I shared it. I was speaking. This was years ago, like in previous career, and I talked about winning 4 of the 7 days in the week. That if you look at the NBA Finals, the World Series, the Stanley Cup, you can lose 3 games and you're still a world champion. You can get your ass kicked 3 out of the 7 games, but if you win 4, you leave with the trophy.
Oh, that's a good perspective.
Isn't that good? So in a week with 7 days, you really only need to win 4 of them consistently over an extended period of time. Not 1 week, right? It's not 7 apples a day keeps the doctor away. So what I do is when it comes to my fitness, particularly, I am adamant about getting 4 workouts in. I'm like, I have to be in there 4 days a week. If I get a 5th, I'm winning. If I get a 6, I'm killing it. I don't work out 7 days a week ever. That's just not feasible. Mm-hmm. And my body needs rest. So that's like a category of it. But then the other way to kind of measure it, I've found, is like emotionally, and just kind of when you lay your head down, was this day a win? And then if it wasn't, because it was just kind of whatever, it didn't really connect. You kind of felt down, or it just was in the minutia of it all. Well, just count it a loss. Just take the L and go, all right, I'm 1 for 1 this week. That tomorrow I got to be 2 for 1. And you'll show up differently every week. So yesterday was just a loss, dude. I was in here. I was supposed to have an appointment. It got moved. And then I don't know if this ever happens with you, or maybe some people listening can relate. But if your calendar changes and then you've got like 2 or 3 hours that are open suddenly, like, the demons can enter. Like, you can get into this space where you're like, what am I doing? And then I really couldn't get myself to like do anything. And I also knew that I had therapy because I meet with my therapist for my mental health. And I do that. I used to do it twice a month. Now I'm down to once a month. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be present in this moment right now. Like I'm not feeling good. Yeah. I'm not. And could I have maybe I could have drinking more coffee and gotten a stimulant, or maybe I could have, got myself out of it. But I was like, I'm just going to hold this shitty space right now and tinker. And those are good opportunities, I think, to tinker. There's things in your business, there's things in your life that you're like, low energy, I could respond to that email. I could push that button. I can move that along. I can just kind of get some of the log jam out. It doesn't require creative energy. It doesn't require me to interact with another person. So just low grade energy. I just kind of did some bullshit. I don't know. I got like 1.5 things done. And then I went into my therapy session. And I came out, like I often do, feeling somewhere between great and horrible. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to win the rest of the day. But then, very important, here, I had a super duper important appointment that I thought was for 4:45 to get my hair cut. And I leave the office and I'm like, I'm going to win this, end this on a win. I'm driving. I look at my calendar and I go, oh my God, it's 4:15. I call the guy. He's like, I'm booked, dude. I can't see you. And I'm like, my hair's very important to me. Way to do. And he's like, and I'm like, I'm getting on a plane to go to Seattle. I timed this. And he's like, I will try to squeeze you in. I'm going to see him today at 3:30. Right back down into the pit. Right back. What the heck, Nathan? Like you were going to go get a haircut and feel good and get a workout in. And then I think, all right, well, I got to make up for this. So I go and work out. You know what I mean? It's like, that is a day in the freaking life, dude, of like, you're up and you're down and you're up and you're down. And I just feel like you could probably relate to that it's not even just like, I got to win the day. It's like, I got to win the hour. If I'm working 7 hours, I got to find 4 of them to be good because 3 of them are going to suck. And it's not an easy journey. I think you could probably relate to that roller coaster.
Yeah. So yesterday, same thing. I'm like in my zone, listening to Tupac, listening to Biggie, all of the
Nice.
music that gets me really hyped up. I got I got notification. One of these people that were looking to bring on as an investor, or have a conversation. They weren't interested. I'm like, oh man, like it just got me in a really bad mood yesterday. And then, later in the day, one of our biggest clients said, "Hey, we're ready to put another order in," and got me up again. And
Nice.
so I could definitely relate. Like it's crazy. Like again, back in the days when I was working in finance, like I would have these like, my wife said I had mood swings. I didn't believe her, but I believe her now.
Yeah.
I would go up and down depending on how these stocks were doing in our portfolio.
Right.
But man, my mood swings in things that are related to my business and how it impacts the business, and so it's even higher and lower now. And I think for us, for our mental sanity, we got to figure out how to manage this a little bit better because, and I think I have pretty good mental health and strength, but there are days I'm like, I just feel like shit.
Yeah, I'm glad you're broaching that topic, man. I think we should speak a little bit to it. I know we're kind of rounding third base, but I think that for me, I'll just speak for myself rather than pontificate. If it weren't for my core values, and I would encourage people to really choose wisely. And don't let it be a alphabet soup or a smishmash of just mantras that you've heard. Like really pluck it out and be like, do I believe this? And will it live rent free? So our main core value, like the cornerstone core value for my core, is walk by faith. And it's a verse. It's walk by faith, not by sight. But the idea was to position in our DNA, internally and externally, something that we communicated like I am right now and conveyed, that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to, because our clients are businesses, not consumers, right? Mm-hmm. We're B2B, unlike you, mainly B2C. That we're going to have to attract people that have a capacity for the unknown, for people that don't need a guarantee in what's coming next and what's going to happen tomorrow. And you could chalk that up to agility, to being adaptive, to being a survivalist, or you could spiritualize it and say, God is giving me my next several steps. For me, it's all of the above. I don't over spiritualize it and be like, God told me, but I also don't discount that there's something bigger than me guiding this. So the way I personally keep walking by faith is by keeping that front and center. The other thing is that the verse doesn't say run by faith. It also doesn't say crawl by faith. It's about finding a cadence and a rhythm that is sustainable. And everybody can walk. I mean, assuming you're not in a wheelchair, everybody can walk. You can get their steps in and go, oh, I got my steps for the day. So it's like, how are we getting our faith steps in, which is really just moving the ball, making the call, doing the follow-up. And then there's got to be this element, I think, of trust that it's going to happen exactly the way it's going to happen. And if you are a control freak and you try to force it, I think you're just setting yourself up for one, like depression, you know what I mean? And like probably bipolar, your mood swings are going to be so extreme that nobody will want to be around you.
Yeah.
And you'll also just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
So I in that like mental health arena, I mean, I'm not qualified, to speak to it, only my own experiences. I just think, oh, it wasn't meant to be. And then I will do that. Like yesterday, I went, you know what? Who knows? Maybe there's a car accident waiting for me between now and my drive. So I've got to just accept that for some reason outside of my control, I looked at my calendar and thought it said 4:45 when it said 4:15. Now what? So yeah, that's what keeps me kind of regulated is going, all right, I'm going to do everything within my power. And then I'm going to let go and let God and let go and let it happen. Like, for example, this episode, I knew you were hoping to have an appointment, right? And we kind of were like, hey, let's do it. We've been talking about it. This is a good time. I'm headed to Seattle, which is fitting because I'm going to be going to the original Starbucks while I'm out there. I'm going to spit on it for you. I'm joking, but
just take a Haymaker sticker and put it on the door.
Yeah, just put it right there. Exactly. Yeah. And I remember us texting a little bit, and you were, hey, I've got this important meeting, but I think it might get pushed, and if not, I'll be available. And I remember thinking like, oh, I wonder what will happen there, right? And I was okay with it either way. I was like, hey, if that appointment works out and we do this episode another time, awesome. If it doesn't and we do this episode, great. But I think the mental investment, the emotional investment in conversations like this, in my opinion, are more valuable than those appointments because they will store in you the source of energy that you'll need to go out. And then what will happen is we'll chop this up and you'll see it from other people's point of view. You'll hear yourself speaking to something because there's already some great sound bites that you've said, and you'll go, damn, I need that. So this is kind of weird and maybe even embarrassing to admit. I go back and watch my own content.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because everyone tries to play it cool. Like they don't look at the insights. Bullshit. You're looking at every listener. I do it because one, I want to hone in the craft. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and every time I'm like, I talk too much, but whatever, I'm working on that. But I want to like assess if I'm bringing my A game to everything that I do. And how often do you get to capture in audio and visual what you're doing? So I think that you'll find in even this episode, this conversation, value in having clips of yourself and being like, I said that. Yeah. You know what? Now I'm hung by the tongue. I said we're going to get more colleges, or I said I'm going to do that stuff. So it's good to revisit those chapters of your journey. And if you can capture it on camera, all the better.
Yeah. It's interesting. I can't watch myself on
it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. And, I don't know why it makes me uncomfortable. Because it's not like the message is deviated much from the way I live my life, but I can't. Yeah, I can't watch myself. Like recently, Jackson University asked me to do this campaign where beautiful setting. They asked my thoughts on school and so on. Did that? I can't watch it. It was on YouTube. I can't watch it. Can't watch the grit. Podcast I did with Kobe. Kobe. I can't watch it. There was another one I did a podcast. I can't watch it. But maybe I'll watch it.
I was going to say, for whatever it's worth, I would encourage you to.
Yeah, so I'll do that. And the thought you just had about just that keeping that constant walk. It's interesting. I think we have the capacity to kind of see the long game, right? Mm-hmm. And I think when you have the capacity to see the long game, sometimes that you go. This is a saying that everyone does. Like sometimes you have to take 2 steps backward to go, or 1 step backward to go 2 steps forward. Right. And I feel like the way we're wired and the way we are intentional with the things that we do, even though that it may not work out the way we wanted, it's still going the direction that we're going to go to, right? That's good. The other thing that I always try to keep in mind is that today's today, and tomorrow you're not going to have today again. And so whatever I'm procrastinating or hesitant about doing, I better just get it done because I'm going to look back. I'm going to be in tomorrow and look back on yesterday and tell myself I should have done that. Yeah. And that's what's kind of continually keeping me going forward and continue that walk is that I've been very fortunate to have mentors who gave me advice about finance, and I got to see the future. So I had when I graduated from college, I had mentors who were like 3 to 5 years ahead of me in finance. I had someone who were 10 years ahead of me, and I had one person who was like the peak of finance to where I wanted to be. And I would always constantly meet with them to kind of see the future ahead, right? In the entrepreneurial world, I don't have that network yet. I know I'm going to build it. Yeah. But, one thing I know is that when I think about the things that I wish I did differently with the business itself, one thing I tell myself is like, hey, you're not going to have today back again. So whatever you want to accomplish, write it in your notebook and just get it done. And that's what been like constantly pushing me forward on days that I don't want to do anything. And also like having these conversations. You're right. I wish the restaurant that my friend introduced us to called me back, and we could have got that deal done. But you know what? There's always tomorrow for that. But this conversation I had with you, it's been very energizing, and being able to capture some of the thoughts and be able to speak about it, and which is sometimes it's better than getting with a new client.
Yeah. So just the energy it requires. Well, one is nuts, just the amount that it requires, like if you could measure it, but also never letting your team see you sweat, but also being vulnerable and just kind of like riding the waves and the moments and the seasons. And I was just kind of curious if you've felt some of that burden. It's a tall order to be like, wow, this kind of rises and falls on my mood, right? I mean, you can't show up like a jerk every day. People are gonna, and you can't be delusionally kind of toxic positivity either. So you have to somehow like ride that wave.
I'm still learning to be the CEO, whether it's chief executive officer, or chief energy officer,
right?
And I will be the first to admit I don't have it figured it out. So I read a lot of books, and I read about what other people in our position have done. My first way of approaching this was like try to keep a really happy mood and not really talk about some of the hardships that we go through. I don't think that was the right approach. Then I became transparent and let people know what we're going through. I'm not sure whether that was the right approach either. I think there needs to be a balance. Again, I'm not sure when I find the right balance and so on. Like I'm just like you. Like I like to think about things. I'm not really like a rah person either. Like get hyped up, so on. But I think I do better in individual conversations than having a larger conversation. But I think there's always a way to improve on that. But it really depends on who your audience is too, right? So, what the conversations I had when I was working in finance, I had really like type A personalities, and people just want to run through the wall.
Right.
Those kind of people. Like you have to talk to them in a certain way and deal with them in certain different ways. The people that are working for our team now, we have to, they're motivated by different things. We have to talk to them in a different way. And again, as when that makeup changes here and there, when we have a new key person come in or a person that leaves, we have to talk differently. And I think as people in our position, we have to be sensitive about that and be able to learn and pivot here and there to make sure that the audience is still engaged, still motivated, and that we adhere to things that matters to them.
Yeah, it's wise. It's good you're having those personal conversations. I think that's really important. Something I've found is, it seems to serve me well. Because there was a season I went through where I just thought I had to be on all the time and thought that I had to be the guy like in the Lego movie where it's like everything is awesome, and just all the time, like everything's awesome. But not everything's awesome, and it never will always be awesome. So I found in that vulnerability, there was opportunity for other people to show up and be strong and not like shoulder to cry on, but like lock arms. It still can always come from a position of strength, but it definitely does need to be real. Something I do try to do, especially if I have to cover a tough topic or if it's, a low point or even just something that's just like, man, we got to deal with this crap, is to end on a high note, and it's like, if you can it doesn't have to be positive even more than 1%, but if it is going to be 1%, have it be, or maybe 2%, like have 1% on the front end and 1%, like bookend it. You know what I mean? Like, hey guys, I love you. You know what I mean? And we're in this together, and here's what's going down. Bam, 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 bam. We had to let that person go. We lost that contract. We screwed up here, whatever the bad news is. And then just like prepare a thought I try to do, or an encouraging word to be like, however,
we're going to persevere, you know what I mean? Or we're in this together. And then just, I think it like sits with people almost like it's kind of like a shit sandwich, or like, putting a dog's pill covered in, peanut butter or something. It's like, you don't want to try to sugarcoat it, but you do want to buffer it a little bit and kind of grease the tracks a little bit to say like, okay, my final thought is positive. I want you to know that as your CEO, as your leader, as somebody that's in it with you, I am still seeing this thing half full. I still think even if it's 51% good and 49% bad. So I think that's really important to build those skills around as you scale and as you grow, because you can't sustain if all the time you're thinking you've got to be the. So that's what I don't mean like chief energy officer in the sense of like generating the energy, because that would be, I think you'd be setting yourself up for failure. More so like navigating the energy and like managing it, if that makes sense.
Yep. Makes
harnessing
sense.
It.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm so glad we finally got to do this.
Yep.
I think it was really cool to get into your story. I know we're just kind of scratching the surface. I'd love to do another episode, another conversation, and have Claudia join us. Can be kind of a part 2 of this convo, because I think it would be really cool to hear her perspective, her perspective on you, her perspective on the business. And also our wives are like the secret sauce, our partners in life see us differently than we can ever see ourselves, and vice versa. So I hope we get to do that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I actually would love to hear a point of view in a conversation like this. And I have to say, like, I wouldn't be able to grow this business without her. Like, the amount of sacrifices she's making right now for this, like, it's again, I just, I don't think her enough about it. But I try to remind her maybe once every 2 weeks that hey, like, I really appreciate what you're doing for us. And so, at some point, I would also want to thank my kids for what they're going through,
right?
Because they're not getting the vacation time or the extracurricular activities they deserve, because daddy and mommy is just working their butts off for this. So
you're in the sacrifice season. You're in the give up to go up season, and it's important to recognize that it affects everyone. I mean, my family very similar. It's no question that that I'm working, and I don't want it to be like that forever, but I can certainly relate to that. So, okay. I know a lot of people that listen to the pod and follow our brand, Drink Coffee. I'm always talking about Haymaker Coffee. Where can they find it? And I think you said that maybe they could even get a discount using like a MyCore promo code.
So we will create a promo code called MyCore.
Love it.
You can find it on the website at Haymaker Coffee co.com.
Awesome.
Or you can find us on Target, or you can find us on Amazon. And we're thanks for having this conversation. We're excited to see what feedback you guys have about what we're trying to build, and if you have any recommendation or thoughts on the brand or just the coffee business itself, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the coffee. I drink it every day, and I was not a coffee drinker. Actually, Tony, our COO, put me on to coffee a couple of years ago, and I was like, okay, I kind of like this. But we would just kind of like, I would get it at Starbucks or I would get it at Dunkin' Donuts. But I never like had it for myself. And then when I moved into the space and met you guys and started drinking your coffee, I was like, ooh, me likey. And I think I just thought like all coffee was created equal, because I was like, coffee is coffee.
Yeah, they're not.
It's not, man. I mean, even this crap, I can't believe that they serve it out here. I'm like, I'm Haymaker for life, man. So hopefully some of our listeners will check it out. I've actually gifted it to a lot of people. And one of my best friends, he's a co-founder of mine. He's actually going to be with us in Seattle. He is an MMA fighter. He competes still in jiu-jitsu. He was also a Division I wrestler at Mizzou, and I sent him that shirt, the Haymaker shirt, just like that one with the gold on it, and some coffee. And he's sent me pictures of it, and we'll have to talk about that too. I think like in his circles and the way he competes and goes to these tournaments, like even kind of sponsoring him or something could be a low lift way to get the word out.
Yeah,
you know, just throw him some free coffee and some gear or something, or put the logo on one of his fighting shorts or something. That'd be pretty cool. I've been thinking about that with the My Core Shield, like starting to think of some things that I have an affinity for, you know, to brand.
Yeah, we did that with a MMA fighter. I'm
cool.
not big stakes, but we did that. So yeah, we got positive feedback.
I think I saw you went to the big fight here.
Yeah, we did that here.
That was the UFC. That was like the big time.
Yeah. So yeah, I know we have a lot of cool people. We're actually going to sponsor my friend's son who is playing high school football. He's getting recruited by a lot of different programs. So we're going to do that, see how that goes.
I love that. Awesome. Well, we'll put all the links in there and you guys can check it out. I appreciate you, man. I love the opportunity to hear like this moment that you're in. I think a lot of other people can relate to it. And I have zero doubt that you are going to absolutely crush it and be one of the big brands in the space. So much love, man. Much respect.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.